Hey guys, how's it going? This is Max, and today we're going to be doing a little bit of a different type of kind of compare and contrast between certain gases to use for your airsoft guns. So primarily what this video is going to be about is just comparing regular green gas to CO2, and also talking about propane gas. So unfortunately I don't have the container of propane today. It is at my parents' house. I do apologize, but I will show you images of what it looks like if you guys haven't really messed with propane before. So this is just going to be a little bit of just knowledge and information coming your way, and I hope you guys enjoy this. So going into the green gas, so this one's definitely going to be one of the most used gases on the airsoft field. It's definitely preferred to use it over any other type of gas for your gas pistols, gas rifles, sniper rifles, whatever, even for little grenades. The reason behind why it's always recommended to is because the thing with green gas is, if you don't know a lot about it, it's essentially propane mixed with silicone oil. So this is a bottle of just silicone oil spray that I have. Pretty much what they do for green gas, they just put that all into a bottle, or I don't know how they do it. They just have everything mixed up, and then it's pretty much propane with lubricant. So reason why it is suggested to be used, if you purchase guns off, any retailer, they'll always have some kind of recommendation to use that, is because when you're firing your pistol or your rifle that's gas powered, what it does, it actually lubricates the internal parts and the blowback piston inside the pistol. So you can see the vent here. All the gas would come out through there, and it kind of sprays out as like a liquid form. So that's a mix of the propane and the silicone oil. So you have both of those contents spraying out when you do fire the pistol slash rifle. So when it blows back the slide, it kind of lubricates underneath the nozzle, and then throws gas and propane to some of the moving parts that are in this little chamber here. So that's why it's usually recommended to use green gas. Same goes for a rifle. I'll show you some examples, just little snippets of like a comparison between shooting some pistols and rifles that are green gas, shooting some pistols that have CO2 in them, and you kind of see the difference between the discharge of the gases. So this is kind of one of the reasons why it's recommended. Kind of some issues that you can have with green gas. It is very temperature sensitive, meaning that if it's below a certain degree, it doesn't like to function properly. It likes to freeze up, and then it likes to vent all the gas out. Usually it performs best and you get the best efficiency usually on warmer days, possibly like 70, 80, 90 degrees, something like that. It'll kind of tell you on here that the preferred temperature to use it at. Obviously, heed the warnings on here. It's still something under pressure like aerosol, so you definitely want to make sure you don't puncture it. In terms of a brand to use for green gas, it really doesn't matter in my opinion. All the gases I have used before, they all are pre-mixed the same, exactly the same everything. This one I have here is just the King Arms gas. There's plenty of other ones out there. I mean, there's just tons, but essentially the formula is pretty much the same. And the cool thing is with this, obviously you get everything included with a nozzle. I'll kind of go into CO2 and kind of describe why, like the good and bad in that. But I mean, mainly that's kind of like, the basis of green gas and what it pretty much does and how it functions. I'll kind of go into talking about now a little bit about CO2, and I'm also going to have shooting demonstrations in between these so you can kind of see the difference, between kind of the power. Each gases are pressurized differently, so CO2 is going to be highly pressurized compared to green gas, so you'll be able to see that when I have some videos for you. So now I'll go ahead and get into the CO2 review of this. And then also, this is going to be the WE AK-74. So with this one's going to be just the regular green gas. So I'll just pop off a few rounds for you guys. So with this one, it's a little bit, obviously it's going to kick hard, but usually with green gas as opposed to CO2, it's going to be a lot less aggressive. But then again, I'm comparing apples and oranges to a rifle to some pistols, but I got to say with the Desert Eagle and this, it kind of kicks along the same range just because of the weight. So now this is going to be the CO2. So there's a lot of plus and minuses with CO2. Just naming some of the perks that kind of defeat it over green gas is that it can perform almost under any temperature. Based off from my experience, I've used CO2 pistols and rifles as low as minus 20 degrees Fahrenheit. And I've had friends that live up north towards the Minnesota area, where it gets to, minus 30 as well, minus 20, and they're crazy in my opinion because they airsoft in like the frigid temperatures, but they always use CO2 or AEG. But just getting their opinions and just airsofting with them in general, I definitely see very good performance out of the CO2. Its kick is much more immense than green gas just because it is pressurized differently, being that it's a smaller cylinder, more gas is crammed in there, so it's under higher pressure. Also same issue with, any type of pressurized anything, definitely try not to puncture it, because it could explode and it could cause you some form of injury. The thing with this too, it is, comparing it to efficiency between the green gas, you'll still get on one mag load probably 2 to 3 magazines before it runs out. It also does depend on what kind of pistol / rifle you're using. For example, if you do use like the KWC Desert Eagle, the big heavy bulky metal, moving back and forth, you'll probably get I've gotten about 2.5, 3 mags if I'm lucky out of that one cartridge. Same with rifles. I never shot anything with CO2 rifles, but I would imagine since there's a lot of moving heavy parts, definitely shoots the gas out more, so you only can get a mag or 2 out of it. The only issue that I find very annoying with CO2, if you're trying to drain the CO2 or, you don't want to leave it in there for long periods of time. With green gas, you can do it both ways. If it is full, you can press the ejector on the magazine to eject all the gas out, and then you'll be good to go. But there's also issues with CO2 where if you're trying to unscrew or screw in the CO2 cartridge through the bottom, you might have issues. I'm sure this happens to anybody where the pins doesn't line up. You can kind of see the pin in there that pricks the top, where it doesn't line up, and then you try to tighten it, but gas is coming out. And the only thing with CO2, once it's coming out, unless you get lucky and get it in there, that's going to be one wasted CO2. Which honestly, I hate that about CO2 because I've had issues, especially with my Desert Eagle, where I don't tighten it correctly. It happens to anybody. And then, you end up wasting your cartridge. You got to go, leave it outside and let it vent out. Green gas, on the other hand, unless you have like a leak or something in your magazine, it's just a chamber already. And you're just squirting in the propane or the green gas in there. And then, it's simple as that. There's no screwing in a cartridge or anything like that. That's kind of what I would say is kind of a drawback with CO2. Especially if you're out on the field kind of, panicking, adrenaline's going crazy, trying to, play and everything. Sometimes it'll happen to you. And then with leaving it in the pistol itself for a long period of time is not also the greatest either, just because it could wear the seals out over time from what I've heard. Usually for any type of CO2, I use this this oil. I got this actually with one of my propane adapters. So I always literally just do a dab right on the top of the CO2 cartridge, and then that'll actually keep all the pressurized CO2 within the gun. Because usually when you tighten in one of the CO2 cartridges, you hear a little bit of a hiss sound. That just kind of, punctures the top of the CO2 cartridge. If you put a little bit of if you dab a little bit of oil on the tip, you actually don't hear that hiss sound. So it kind of, it's kind of not, you're kind of not sure if you tightened it in, but you definitely know you tightened it in because it'll just set in there and you can feel the needle puncture the top. So I always have that because having a little bit of oil on there keeps the seal kind of, lubricated, and in some essence it actually shoots in some CO2 through the pistol as well when you're firing, so it kind of lubricates it a little bit. CO2 is a very dry gas, so it doesn't really have a whole lot of lubricating oils or anything like the green gas does. With what I have here, I basically am summarizing this. CO2 is awesome and efficient. It's good in both temperature, freezing or really hot. It's got more power, which I know a lot of people like the power, just the kick of it. And then, efficiency, like I said, you screw it up, you waste a cartridge. That's the only thing that I really hate with CO2, but I really can't complain. I've been a fan of CO2 for years. I've used it a lot. The only other issue, it definitely takes a beating on your gun if you do use your CO2 pistols a lot or rifles. It takes a beating on the components because, of course, the components aren't structured, very durable steel or anything like that. So over time, of course, it's going to start breaking parts just because of the high pressure of the gas. But anyway, now I'll go ahead and get into a little bit talk with just propane itself, just pure propane as a source of power. So hope you guys enjoy that clip. Right now I'll show you an array of my CO2 pistols that I have. I'm going to just do a couple test shots of each one. Right here is the P226. This is by KJW. So I'll just give you a few test fires. Right now I have the CO2 magazine inside, so you can kind of see that there. I'll just kind of describe the feeling of the actual just CO2 and how it shoots. So I'll just do a couple shots. Right now, what you'll notice right away with CO2 is the kick is going to be much more intense and a lot crisper feel and a lot louder. Next one I have is the KWC Desert Eagle. This is the newest version, so I'll do a few shots with the semi and a few shots of the full auto. So let me get that going for you guys. You guys know that this thing is a huge hand cannon, so I'll just do a couple shots of that. So, with this thing, it's insane, so I'll do a few full auto shots. Let me get that switched over for you. Okay. So, definitely loud and kicks like a mule. And then the last one I have, let me see, 1 second. Okay guys, so unfortunately today I was not able to get any propane. I do have some. I'm in my own apartment right now. I left everything at my parents' house, so I will show you a screenshot of what these tubs of propane usually look like. You can purchase them anywhere from like Walmart or any type of like sports store, or anything where it has like, camping items. Usually Walmart in their camping sections where you can find jars of these. I'll kind of talk a little bit about propane. So propane itself is kind of like, I call it like a dirty gas, because there's a lot of just, they put a special scent, like a rotten egg scent, into propane so you can detect the smell. It's the same propane you use in your house for your furnace to heat your home. So they put that smell in there to detect any leaks in your home if you do have a gas leak, because usually the gas is naturally odorless, just like green gas. It's also an odorless gas. This is an odorless gas as well, but by law they have to put this rotten egg smell into the propane so then you can detect any leaks. So it smells pretty horrible, I'm not gonna lie to you. If you guys mess with just regular propane, you already know this. The perks of propane, what I like is it's dirt cheap. For a huge bottle, probably, I'm sorry guys, I knocked that over. For a bottle, it's gonna be twice the thickness as this King Arms gas. It's gonna be about $2. And from my personal usage of propane, I've used the whole container. It lasted me just thousands of shots, depending on how you use it, and temperature obviously takes into effect, because it still works just like green gas. It's very temperature sensitive, so it's not going to always function perfectly in cold weather. But it's just the cheap aspect, or the cheap factor of it all is just, awesome in that way. If you're kind of airsofting on a budget, why not? But, with being cheap, it's kind of, also bad because it's a very just nasty gas. It really wreaks havoc on your guns. I know some airsoft manufacturers actually will void your warranty on any of your airsoft weapons if you use propane. I think KWA is one that will void your warranty if you use propane. Um, they say to use green gas just because it helps lubricate. Well, propane, it doesn't have anything to lubricate. It doesn't have the silicone mixed in with the propane like the King Arms gas does, or just green gas in general, I mean. So when you do use regular propane, the only problem that you'll experience over time, not right away, but over time, is the seals on your magazine going bad. So the seals right here for this little pin, the seal for the valve inside there, I'm sorry, I can't really get that focused for you. Those usually end up going bad, and then the gas that ends up blowing into through the top when the gas ejects also squirts out propane everywhere. And over time, it does actually take a toll on the gun, and it does dry out a lot of rubberized parts that may be in the gun, especially the gasket seals. That's kind of, something you need to keep in mind. What I have here, which you've been staring at for a couple of minutes now, this right here is going to be a propane adapter. So when you get the little jug of propane, it's not going to have any spigots on it like the green gas does. So you can kind of see, it's going to mimic this little needle here for the green gas container. So I had to purchase this separately. This one is kind of the more affordable, cheap one, which I'm not going to lie, works excellent. I've used it many times. I paid like $3 for it on eBike. There is I think the Mad Bull one, the all metal one. That one's like 20 bucks. I'd go with that one just because why not? It's better quality, it's metal, so you're kind of getting what you're paying for. So you screw that onto the top of this propane container. I will mention, with a full tank of propane, it's very highly pressurized. So when you screw it on there and you insert the gas into the pistol or rifle, it'll definitely fill it up very quickly. So definitely be careful of that, because the discharge of gas when you take off the propane from the magazine, when you disconnect the line that feeds the gas into the pistol, it'll definitely shoot out a lot of propane. So just kind of be aware of that. Don't be freaked out. It'll happen. Anyway, getting into what is recommended, and I also got this little GBB oil with this little adapter. So it tells you right here, inject 2 drops of oil into your tank opening once, or it looks like once every 8 to 10 fills. So within, let's say, 10 magazine fills, add about a couple drops into the spigot or into the main opening of the propane tank, and then screw on the adapter. So that at least can, they were nice enough to include this oil to actually use your propane so it still lubricates. So that is kind of, another cheaper alternative, because for a can of green gas, it's going to be anywhere from $7 to $9, whereas one jug of propane that's twice the size of one can of green gas will last you, a couple hundred shots for sure, maybe even 1,000. I'm not 100% sure. But you can just drop a few dots of oil into the top, and then essentially you still have that lubricating component in the propane. So that'll decrease any issue that you might have with your pistol, with anything drying out. But like I said, the only thing I dislike about propane is going to be the smell. And with the smell, it can make you sick if you're airsofting inside with a small room. If, like, when I do my target practice inside, I usually never use propane because the smell is too strong. The good thing is with green gas, it's odorless, but it's also still, it's still a toxic substance, to have in your air if you're in a confined space, because it's still propane. It's just the unscented version. So with green gas, it's unscented. Regular propane is scented. So there's a lot of, plus and minuses. It's really how, your budget is. But I'd always recommend, spend a little more and then you'll get more use out of your airsoft guns. If you're like, for me, I don't always use propane. I use propane if I'm like on a budget and, I kind of don't need green gas right now. I can use, this. I just do that, I use a mix of both. I kind of flush it in between with green gas and regular propane with just green gas pistols. So I kind of use a mix of both. And it's worked out fine for me. And you'll hear a lot of people, have their own opinions between, green gas versus propane versus CO2. Everybody has their opinions. Everybody likes, one of the three. I prefer to use all across the board, just kind of experiment with each one, which I've done. And, I like all of them, to be honest. I don't have a preferred favorite. Like perks of green gas, I can fire it inside. Perks of CO2 can fire it outside when it's really cold out. And then propane, it's cheap, it's everywhere. It's, any type of Walmart or Target or whatever in their camping goods, easily found. So, there's a lot of pluses and minuses to this. But I'm going to go ahead and just kind of close this out. And just, if you guys have any other questions or you want more knowledge or more information, you guys could always let me know in the comments. You could send me a private message. I like talking to you guys. So if you want to see, me, try out the propane, or do more reviews about it, more reviews on the CO2 and green gas, let me know. I can definitely work with it. But I'll go ahead and finish it up, and I hope you guys do enjoy this video. Please definitely leave a like, share the video, and subscribe if you like my airsoft content. And I hope you guys have a great day.